So from here to here, dude, it was just hamburger. It's like I say all the time, I don't know how to make you happy, but I can tell you a for sure recipe for misery, and that is be something other than who you fundamentally are. I feel that as children, we were our authentic selves, and then life, people, society, parents, and they start steering you away from who you are. And everyone talks about PTSD. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I think what most veterans are actually suffering for is a lack of self-worth that's rooted in childhood trauma. Even if I was there for 20 years, I would still feel the same because it's never enough. It's adrenaline addiction, or what I call chaos addiction. My name's Tyler Gray. So I actually born and raised in California, since we're in California.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it, behind enemy lines.
Yeah, I moved from Oklahoma to here, and everybody thought I was crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm originally from Oklahoma.
No kidding. So there's a lot of, where I grew up, Bakersfield, California.
Yeah.
Is from the Dust Bowl era. So there was a lot of people from Oklahoma. From the
went out.
Okies, the term Okie, in Bakersfield, Okie was used pretty commonly when I was pretty commonly when I was a kid.
I'll be darned.
But not really not as like derogatory, more just like
that's where they're from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like a Texan.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it wasn't like bad.
No,
it was just more like that group of people that came during that time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's derogatory now, but
it's not derogatory.
Yeah, you never know. But
they take pride in it.
Grapes of Wrath was actually, a lot of people don't know that the book is about people coming from Oklahoma
during the Dust Bowl.
To the Kern County area.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting
history fact. So grew up here?
Yeah, so grew up here and, went in the military, went in the Army, did Army Special Operations as in Ranger Battalion as a sniper, deployed as a sniper, team leader by that time, then went to Army Special Missions Unit, counter-terrorist unit, and then spent the rest of my career there, deploying multiple times to Iraq. And then I got blown up in Sadr City in Baghdad.
What year was that?
That was 2005. Okay. And then I got medically retired, eventually got medically retired.
So how you got the Army?
Yeah. So that's
in Sadr City?
And so I got medically retired. And, for me, I consider myself lucky in the sense that as a kid, there was two things I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the military, which, by the way, people are like, why didn't you become a SEAL? And I'm like, or a Marine. I'm like, well, probably because I can't swim.
I can't swim either, bro. And I was just hoping I didn't have to do anything.
I don't. So people are like, you can't swim. I'm like, well, it's less that I can't swim, and it's
just
more
bad at it, bro.
Well, I don't float.
Oh, no way. You're just negative buoyant.
Negatively buoyant. And, as a kid, everyone's like, oh, everyone floats. And I was like, what am I doing wrong?
No.
Turns out.
You're probably just super lean, man. You're just lean and mean.
I was told that it's just a certain, like you said, it's a density thing, a muscle. I was told it was muscle density.
Yeah.
And it's again, like you said, it's just, I'm negatively buoyant. So it's like if I jump in the ocean, I won't sink to the bottom.
Right.
But my head will not be above water at rest, which is kind of important to rest. I can float, but my mouth will be under the water.
Oh,
so
that's not good.
It's miserable. So I always honestly, I actually did. This is funny. I've actually never said this on a podcast. Just because I forgot about it. But when I was in high school, I did. I don't even know what it was called. That's probably why I haven't mentioned it. But I basically did this Navy SEAL. It wasn't like ROTC. I don't know what it was called. I need to look it up.
Yeah.
But like we went to the Navy recruiting office and like did, ran an obstacle course. Yeah, it was awesome. I literally don't remember what it was called.
It was kind of like a little in-doc to get you to get motivated to try out.
Well, it was funny because it was a Navy and it was a SEAL thing. But like I never planned on, going to the Navy just because, again, the swimming issue. But it was whatever was available at my school at that time. So I went and did that in Bakersfield. And again, that was like my first, I've never mentioned that before.
I'll be darned.
Probably, like I said, because I don't remember the name of it and I want to give more context. But everyone I was with in that, I remember one guy's named Leo. I remember probably 4 of the guys, everyone joined the military.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
really?
for sure. Well, also Bakersfield,
Yeah, true.
In Bakersfield, you either join the military, or you go to Bakersfield College. That's it. Or you go work in the oil fields.
It sounds about like Oklahoma as well, man, to be honest.
Very similar, very similar. So
what year did you go join the Army? Oh, right out of high school?
So funny story. No, I actually, well, this will tie into what I was about to say, which is the 2 things I want to do is join the Army, specifically. Why? Rambo.
Yeah.
First Blood,
Hell
dude.
yeah.
I watched First Blood. I'm like, I want to be a Green Beret. I want to eat stuff to make a Billy Goat that would make a Billy Goat puke. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I tell people this. I tell the story, and it's funny, and I'm kind of saying it, in a funny way, but I'm also totally serious when I say this, and that is, as a kid, I watched First Blood, and I was like, PTSD looks awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm like, that guy.
They sold us it, dude.
Yeah, I'm like, that guy's so messed up. I'm in.
That's
right?
badass.
I want to get in the fight with the.
I want to not be able to turn it off.
Exactly. I want to give that speech.
Yeah.
You can't just turn it off.
Exactly.
I want to be that guy.
I mean, that's the reason I joined the military. I watched all the movies, man. Same thing.
Oh, yeah.
Arnold movies, the war movies, you name it.
80s, 90s had like
the massive impact on me and my military trajectory.
Yeah, same. So I watched, and it was like you said, it was more than just First Blood, but specifically to be a Green Beret was what I wanted to be.
I love that.
Definitively based off of First Blood, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, not just First Blood, but Rambo 2, Rambo 3, when it just got gratuitous. Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, the Vietnam War, was a big deal for me when I was a kid. Yeah. I looking back now, I've never really realized, which sounds crazy, but I've never really realized how fresh it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
If you really think about it,
True.
it's like, just because, I was born in 77, so the war pretty much had ended by the time I was a kid.
Yeah.
But, you go to 85, and I mean, the end of the war was...
a lot of your friends' dads or parents could have possibly
every single
right?
one, but neighbors down the street,
right.
Absolutely. So I just didn't, as a kid, because I had missed being alive when it was happening, it felt in the distant past, when in reality it was actually the pretty recent past. So,
yeah, it was.
I just never thought of that until relatively recently. But the 2 things I wanted to do as a kid: be Army, Special Operations, and work in movies.
Awesome.
For the reasons that we just talked about. I was, I watched Star Wars, till I broke the VHS tape as a kid, and I was just a movie fanatic. And so when I graduated high school, I actually moved to LA. Even though I wanted to join the military, I think I was also that kid, like, if I loved a band that was underground, but then suddenly everyone discovered it,
you bounced.
I hated it. I'm like, they suck, right? I was that guy. So I even though I wanted to join the military, I didn't want to do what everyone else is doing. So I moved to LA and spent, I think about a year trying to work in entertainment, which was so laughable because I had no idea what I was doing.
You're out of high school, man.
Dude, not only did I not know what I was doing, there's actually a lot to what I'm about to say is I didn't know what I wanted to do. And a better way to say it was I did know what I wanted to do, but I had such a low, I had no confidence at a very low self-worth and a very low self-confidence. So even though if somebody would have, put a gun to my head and made me answer questions, it would have been obvious that I wanted to be a writer director. I mean, I was obsessed with Tarantino and, Kevin Smith and all the people that were making independent movies at the time. But I wasn't a writer.
Yeah.
I didn't have, I think one thing that quantified that is tied to self-worth is you feel like you need to have the quantifiers, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I need to have a film school certificate and then I can officially do something. 100%. Without that, I can't do it.
Well, when you're young, you have none of that. You have none of that credibility. And I can relate a lot to that. I think a lot of young men can, to be honest, because you know what you want in your heart, right? But you see all these adults, you get opinions from everybody else when you're young, right? Because you're asked what are you going to do? You want to look at a successful guy, you take advice from somebody that's deemed successful, maybe with just money. Could be a complete disaster behind the scenes, but you're like, I'll take all his advice. And so you're very influenced by that at the time. And so you feel like you need to make a logical decision when in reality, you still had your heart set on something that was there, right? We all, I think so many people give up on that little young childhood dream.
It's funny that you say that. So my theory is that everyone actually knows what they want to do. as children. I think we
believe
all
that.
know what we want to do as children, and then we let life and other people in the world, society, you name it, all those things get in the way and complicate what is actually very simple.
100%.
You talk to any kid. Or, I mean, I don't have kids, so I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm
Well,
assuming.
when they get older, like when we get towards that age, especially me and more of my teens, like you're saying, like, well, I don't know, even young, I played war with sticks, you know?
Yeah.
So-
Guns. When I was, we call it playing guns.
Yeah,
or playing
play guns,
war.
yeah.
And that's all I did.
That's all I
Literally
did.
all I did.
And then it went to like paintball when I had the opportunity for that, you know?
The stakes. Paintball back then was fun.
It was super fun, man.
It was like you were in the woods and you were like
Yep.
stalking people because the guns didn't shoot 8 miles.
No,
right?
no.
So you had to get
Yeah.
close to kill
You
somebody.
did.
Now it's just like,
those
it's
things
like
are crazy.
Oh, dude, it's like playing against a minigun. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But back then you had to like sneak through the woods. And,
True.
I was the kid in the ghillie suit.
I built my own ghillie suit.
Oh, yeah.
I got a magazine and I learned how to do it.
Yeah. I was the same. It was a lot of fun back then. There was some great places in Southern California too.
I bet.
Yeah, back then. I used to play paintball quite a bit. So I was, dude, I remember going to like a casting call for being an extra, like just random stuff. And also, by the way, as you know, there was no way to search it on the internet. You know what I mean? So it's like, I was looking through a paper, like there was no place, maybe a certain, entertainment magazines, but, which all generally were guiding you to paying them for some kind of class or something like that. But there really wasn't, I didn't have any direction. I didn't know anyone. And so I spent a year just really spinning my wheels and not knowing what to do. And then I made the decision, which is a little shocking to me that I came to this conclusion at that age, which was, all right, this Hollywood thing is going to take a while to sort out, and I'm like, the military is a young man's game. Like if I'm gonna do both, I need to do the military one now, because if I start getting some traction working in the industry, I'm not going to leave it, to do another career. No. So I was lucky that I had the awareness at that time to go, all right, so then I'll join. And I actually joined, even though, as I said, I grew up in Bakersfield, I actually joined out of the literal Hollywood Army recruiting office.
Because you were down there.
Yeah, because I was down there. Yeah, so it was funny. My MEPS, all that stuff said Hollywood, which you can only imagine. Yeah, you can only imagine the shit I went through.
100%.
I was like the only kid from California and Army basic training in Georgia. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm sure they deem somebody Hollywood anyway, and then so you get it for real.
Yeah. And it's crazy too, because when I went to Georgia for basic training, I had never been outside of I had never been east of Vegas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, dude, when I went to Georgia, this is a true story. I'll tell you this.
It's a different world.
Dude, I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And I remember being in basic training. I'll never forget this story. I remember being in basic training, and I don't know, maybe we'd been there for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I remember having my tray of food. And I remember sitting there, and, you can't talk, but I remember seeing this white stuff. And I was like, hey, man, what is that? He's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. What is that? He's like, you're going to get us in trouble. I'm like, what is that? And he's like, shut the fuck up. You know it's grits. I'm like, what's grits? I had never seen grits before.
Out here, I bet, no.
And I was looking at it and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? And he was like, dude, why the fuck you asked me a stupid question? I'm like, honestly,
I literally didn't know.
I'm like, I've never seen grits. And that fucking blew his mind apart.
That's hilarious.
Like, what?
I could see that though. I mean, it makes sense culturally.
Never,
right? Or just
it was like grainy. I was like, what is this stuff? It's not oatmeal, but it's oatmeal-esque.
Grits are gross, man. I'm not a huge fan.
What's interesting about grits, which I'll say grits are unique in the sense that you can like dessert them up or you can like hearty them up, which is anything that
kind of
can
like
go
cream of rice, cream of wheat.
Anything that can go both ways like that is pretty unique.
It is.
I actually got, by the time I got to Ranger School, I remember just taking my grits and my oatmeal and mixing it together.
I'm just hungry, bro.
Yeah, I'm just hungry. Actually, you're right. I was probably just starving, but it was much better. Yeah,
especially at Ranger School.
Oh, I became a grits fan.
How was Ranger School?
Man, it was a blur.
What year was this?
I went in 98.
Okay.
I believe. Yeah, 90. I think 98.
See, when you're in school like that, though, that's something that people need to think about, too, if you're watching this is, I mean, this is the OGs, guys. These are like the Vietnam veterans that maybe still in, no? Like, are you catching some of the higher ranking guys that are in there or no? Or are you catching some guys that have no time in?
No, not at that point. But like for me,
the mindset's very much so still Vietnam phase, no?
At that time,
Training.
100%.
Yeah,
Because
no.
In the 90s were interesting because of the 90s were still, in my opinion, still very much 80s. There was still a lot of 80s stuff, right? The military, like there was no CQB, it was Mount, or what called, which was very different than we would call CQB. It was very, like I remember the Mount manuals, going through them. The doctrine was very much still 80s, And by the way, if you look at 80s Mount doctrine, dude, it was not, I'll say this because it's a fascinating fact. You know what World War II Mount, or it wasn't even called Mount, but you know what the doctrine is for room clearing from World War II?
No.
All right. Doctrine from World War II, room clearing, was 2 pineapple grenades. So there'd be a room.
Okay.
Pineapple grenade.
Okay.
The bar gunner, the BAR, fully automatic 30-06, 20-round mag, would step in the doorway, shoot a full burst in a figure 8 pattern in the room.
Okay.
And then step out of the room, which I think probably to change mags.
Yeah, because
they're out. Mags, They just burnt 20 rounds, right?
Yeah.
Then the dudes with the M2 carbines and the Thompsons would go in and sweep
Holy
up.
cow.
That's World War II room clearing doctrine.
Oh, there's nobody in there?
Well, so that's the interesting point about it, though, is like, you clear the shit out of a room. There ain't no question about it.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the reason that the doctrine was that way back then is really it was assumed non-combatants had already left.
Yeah.
The structure.
More traditional warfare.
Yeah, it was again. Right. And the other thing too that a lot of people don't realize back then is if you were if you were the, if you were fighting, look at World War II and you had, the Germans may have left some people in certain towns or villages to kind of stop the coming advance. But by and large, you're not choosing a city for everyone to fight room to room in. It just wasn't,
it makes sense.
Why would you, it's a horrible place. Here's a better way to say it. There's no definitive advantage for either side in that environment.
Not in that situation. Not conventional warfare.
In conventional warfare. So it's like, so they just generally didn't choose to have warfare in buildings because neither side is really definitively offense or defense.
That makes sense.
So they just kind of, you stepped back out of the city, waited for them to come through the city, and then ambushed them.
That's why the protocol's that. So the collateral damage, it doesn't matter. They're not thinking about it.
Exactly. And all that stuff didn't really change until the 90s. Somalia was when it really, at least in my opinion, when it really started changing. So when I joined, the military fights the last war, just like law enforcement changes their tactics to the last officer involved, fatality or shooting, which is not the way to do it for either side. But like, look, dude, if you went to the Army and said 10 years ago, hey, you guys should really start working on some stuff for trench warfare, they would have laughed you out of the freaking room.
Yeah.
They'd been like, that's never going to happen again. Get the hell out of here.
100%. I never would have thought it either, right?
Yeah, but it continually, if you look at every battle, like, what were we prepared for post, what were we prepared for Ranger Battalion after Panama? Ranger Battalion, because I was in Ranger Battalion. Ranger Battalion after Panama. Now, granted, they did have a two streak, which was 83 Grenada, parachuting into the airfield seizure, and then airfield seizure in Panama. So Ranger Battalion was like, airfield seizures is our bread and butter. That's all we're going to train for because that's what they've done. And then you look at 90 Desert Storm happens, and then it's like, dude, it's all Apaches and tanks and bombing things and stealth fighters.
All air, almost.
It's all air to ground, right? And then Somalia happens, which is completely unlike anything else.
Right.
And then post Somalia, everyone's training for Somalia. And then what happens? Afghanistan.
Yep.
Nothing like anything whatsoever.
Like it.
Dude, I'm not joking. When we went to Afghanistan the first trip, I mean, dudes were carrying like 36 freaking I remember a dude was carrying 36 203 rounds.
Holy
Most dudes were
shit.
carrying at least 10 magazines, if not 12.
Oh my God, that's way down.
They were thinking of Somalia.
Yeah,
everyone
really,
was
I'm gonna
thinking,
be-
I need all the supplies
You never know
for
what's gonna
48
happen.
hours.
Yep.
That's what
Gunfight.
Dudes were carrying samurai swords, like literally. You know, it was like
well, I mean, yeah, you do think about
that
it.
was what was in
Yeah.
everyone's head. And then, of course, you get there and you go, dude, I can barely move. And you start stripping stuff down. And then again, Iraq, completely different than Afghanistan.
Totally
and
different.
then Syria. So it's like, at the end of the day, we have to accept, the military and the warfighters need to accept that the next war is not going to be the last war. And we need to have some kind of understanding that warfare is ever evolving. I mean,
100% adaptability.
Dude, drones now are
It's insane. One of the most lethal things that's out there. I mean, honestly,
dude,
it's crazy.
You know what hasn't happened yet, and I'm waiting for it, and I'm going to make a prediction now. It's going to happen in the next, I think, 2 to 3 years. Murder by drone.
100%.
Who's going to be the first? It's going to commit murder by
100%.
drone.
This on the civilian sector, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
on the civilian sector,
Absolutely.
yeah, not military.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
going to happen. Dude, what would have happened if old Luigi, whatever the hell, Mario and Luigi,
Yeah.
the guy that killed the CEO, I mean, shot him at close range with a homemade pistol. What would have happened if he would have used a drone with a pipe bomb?
God.
We wouldn't know. I don't think we'd know his name.
That's
I think he would have got
insane.
away with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's
Yeah,
as soon as he put himself in close proximity to the target,
boom.
now they got him on camera and all these different things. And so it's just the relentless pace of technology right now is it's shocking.
It is.
It's
It
absolutely
is.
shocking.
Did you go to Somalia? Were you in Somalia?
No. So I was lucky. So you kind of, this will go around to what you asked me. So when I got there, first of all, to your point, Ranger Battalion was absolutely doing what I call old school Ranger, what we think of, or at least maybe what people used to think of, the old school Rangers in the 80s. We'd go out to for 2nd Ranger Battalion, we'd go out to South Rainier, doing stuff in the woods.
Cool.
Like,
Yeah.
true
Ranger shit, in my
shit,
opinion.
Yeah, and it was awesome. Ranger Battalion was great in my mind, in the 90s, because at that time it was a hybrid between old school Ranger elite infantry and then special operations support and missions. So it was kind of in the middle. You do some CQB and urban stuff for half the year, or spread out, and then you would do old school woods Ranger stuff. Ranger school, to your point, was very much like Vietnam. I mean, it was Vietnam curriculum. I don't think anything was different at that time. Which, for a kid who grew up obsessed with Vietnam, I was like, this is
Same here.
amazing.
I was obsessed with Vietnam.
I was like, hopefully the role players are Vietnamese.
Yeah, it's gonna be legit.
Nope.
They're
Turns
the
out,
Rangers.
no, yeah. But yeah, it was awesome. And then obviously September 11th, dramatically changed everything. But
How long had you been in before September 11th?
think so. I was ending my first enlistment, so I'd been in for around 4 years.
Okay.
By the time it happened, or maybe
You're just still with Ranger Battalion at this point?
yeah. So I was I was going to get out at that time.
Were you a
because
sergeant, staff sergeant?
I was a sergeant.
Yeah.
5. Yeah. I slowed my promotion down pretty dramatically by being in the sniper section, because you had to wait for slots to come up. But but I was like, dude, I'm going to get out. No wars going on. Now I'll go do the Hollywood thing was my plan.
Sure. Did my time.
September 11th happened, and then I'm like, and then they were bugging me for re-enlistment at the time. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, dude, I'll tell you straight up. The day we get orders, I will come re-enlist. Until that happens, stop bothering
Call
me.
me, yeah.
I'm like, when it happens, and then sure as shit, we finally got the orders to deploy, and I was like, all right, and I re-enlisted for 6 years. And then, I had, and again, you're going to get this, probably a lot of people watching this will get this, but but I was excited.
Yeah.
I was excited for a war. I mean, it's not a good thing, don't get me wrong.
But it's in your mind. You've been thinking about it, like you said, since we were kids.
Yeah, it would be the equivalent. The best way I've explained it before, it would be the equivalent of, you've been on a sports team for, 4 years practicing.
Yep.
And then at some point, dude, you want to play the game.
Absolutely. You're ready to get off the bench.
Even if you know playing the game, people are going to get severely injured and may die, you still want to play the game. Like that's the game.
Well, that's what happens when people ask me about, I had deployed to Iraq one time, but I was like, people are like, well, how was it? And I was like, well, I finally got to play the game, like doing what I was looking to do. Because when you're a garrison, there's all sorts of stupid shit to do.
Oh, yeah.
And so I didn't want to do that. When we were out there, it's like, oh, now it's real and it's more.
Yeah, it
makes sense.
Yeah, it's in a lot of ways, there's very definitive purpose in combat. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, and I remember, by the way, I'll tell you this, man, dude, I remember showing up to, Kandahar. First flew into Kandahar in Afghanistan. And bro, dude, it was like Vietnam. Like,
really?
There was no infrastructure.
Oh, dude.
Everything was brand new. So it's like we had just taken, 3rd Ranger Battalion had just taken Kandahar Airport, And
you're combat outposting on like hills and shit. Just
dude,
like we watched it like Hamburger Hill, like bunkers and stuff,
we built, I got lucky. Our deployment, so 3rd Bat's deployment, they took Kandahar Airport, and then they pretty much, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 3rd Ranger Battalion, they jumped in October 19th, 2001. If I'm not mistaken, they spent their entire deployment on the Kitty Hawk. Because everything was based off the Kitty Hawk at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, they took the airfield, but there wasn't enough infrastructure to support.
That makes sense.
And then 1st Ranger Battalion rotated out. They did their whole deployment on, what's it called? The worst job ever. Call him the, oh my God. When the ready, oh my God, was the reserve force, the
National Guard, no.
No.
QRF, no.
QRF.
Yeah, QRF.
Oh, God. It's been
calling the QRF. Now I got you.
Calling the QRF. Yeah, so they were on QRF the entire time out of Kandahar, and they got called for Roberts Ridge, which was, so they had from what I was told, they spent their entire time on QRF. That was like their one, big mission, which was just a horrible situation. So anyways, when we got there, we started on QRF, but then Anaconda happened, and that pushed all the Taliban to the across the border. So I was lucky that I got to go to the outstations. So we built the first outstations.
Wow. Yeah, you're building them up, sandbagging and everything, huh?
Coast, freaking Shkin, Asadabad, J-Bat, all of this. So like, dude, when we showed up,
there went shit.
Dude, there was nothing there. It was just a
light skin Humvees, nothing.
Yeah,
it
was
just like
great. Toyotas. We had the Toyotas at that time.
Because Humvees were all, it was fucking rough terrain for
dude,
those things,
I remember this is a true story. So many people bought Toyotas when we
came back.
Because what happened, I'll give you an example. There was this SF guy got ambushed, ended up dying, and then so we basically QRF'd to where he got ambushed and shot. And we took 4 Humvees and 4 Toyota Tacomas, 2001 Toyota Tacomas. And, dude, it was a hellacious drive on the Pak border. We ended up in Pakistan accidentally, I think, like 4 times that night. But because, by the way, they don't know where the border is.
Oh, yeah, but not.
They're like, the border's here. And you're like, on the GPS, you're like, I don't think it is where you think it is, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, we're going all 4 over the course of, 6 hours. All 4 Humvees break down. We leave like 2 people with each Humvee, right? And then have people come and get them. We cross-load everyone else from those Humvees into the Toyotas. So now these Toyotas have like twice the amount of people they should have,
right?
Dude, they're just Toyota Tacomas,
cruisers,
yeah, and these were straight regular vehicles. These were not like militarized, which is why they worked. but anyways, dude, the Toyotas, all 4 Toyotas made it with twice the amount of people.
Holy cow.
That they should have. And then we got back from that trip, and like literally probably half the freaking company bought either I bought a 4Runner, people bought Toyota Tacomas, but dude, it's great vehicles. But
is that your first deployment?
Yeah, that was my first one. So I was a sniper team leader at that time, and so I had a 2-man, well, it was a 3-man team, including shooter, spotter, and team leader. And then we were doing we were doing like missions, just, which they would not do now. But again, it was so early then. But
it's cowboy shit.
Yeah, it was cowboy shit, dude. We were going out for 4 days.
That's wild. I mean, I think that's Vietnam style sniper
It was
tactics.
absolutely Vietnam style.
Yeah.
So so it was a 3-man team, myself, a shooter and a spotter. Then we also had an attached JTAC with us.
Okay.
That would basically control our aircraft. So I'd control I was the leader, and I would control the radio calls and all that stuff. He would control aircraft, and then shooter spotter focused on, the guns.
Awesome. Did you guys just rotate? Were you a shooter spotter? Or you just rotated?
No, we pretty much. I carried an SR-25 at that time, so I could shoot if I I could shoot long range if I needed to. But that was awesome. And then what we started doing too is we started, this was outside of Shkin, which is, I don't know, a mile from the Pakistani border. We started bringing a mortar team that we would offset with. So we would move, and the mortar team would move, a ridge line or two over. So that if something happened, we could call, mobile 60, support. Mobile 60 millimeter mobile support. But we were all, dude.
That's a light team. That's a small group, right?
Yeah, that was still 8 total people. 4 and 4. The advantage that we had, and probably the reason that I was comfortable doing it, is our weapon systems fire 10 times the distance of the best bad guy with an AK.
So, good point.
If anything happens, we're fine. But
you are splitting up. Like if you're hitting a target, or you're on you're getting a firefight or something. I mean, you got a mortar team somewhere else, or you guys are moving around, right?
Yeah. Well, we would always bound. So when we were moving, the mortar team would be static, and when the mortar team was moving, we'd be static, and we'd support them with like the 50 with the Barrett.
So hoofing it on foot.
Dude, it was my ruck. I remember specifically, my ruck was over 110 pounds for.
Oh my God!
I mean, just water, batteries,
everything else you need.
Which, by the way, let me just state this, dude: the fact that the military doesn't have a steroid program is the single dumbest thing. I'm looking at you, U.S. military.
Yeah,
get with it. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
So it's okay to give me speed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool. No problem.
But no testosterone.
Steroids, test, HGH, that crosses the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, dude.
Makes no sense.
Come on.
And especially half the guys in the operations or anything like that are already on it or doing their own things.
It's ridiculous. So why don't you have it an
education program, a structure for it?
Structured program. And again, dude, what's the crazy? This is the single most insane thing I've ever heard from the military. You know what? The one thing I got when I was like trying to push it, and they're like, why they can't do it?
Yeah.
Quote, it would make guys too aggressive.
Oh, no way. That's what they said? They couldn't come up with anything else.
I'm like, bro, what do you think this job is?
Yeah.
Like,
what kind of people do you think you got in here?
Wait. What are you guys doing? Like, how can you even say that with a straight face?
He said that shit.
Yeah, I was like, making it too aggressive. I'm like, guys, that's what you're teaching. That's what you're preaching. That's what
you're harnessing the aggression.
Yeah, you're pushing that aggression, and now that's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. Yeah,
it's crazy. But again, I mean, especially with the advances, it's man, dude. To me, there needs to be a program that has some kind of regimented hormone regimentation. And if they did that and monitored it, dude, I think injuries would go down significantly.
I believe that 1,000%.
I mean, you're carrying a 110-pound ruck, and people are like, you came out of this with back problems.
Yeah.
No shit. Of course I did.
Shit, I bet you did.
Yeah, your neck's not doing too good. Oh, I wonder why. I don't know. It's just crazy.
Shit.
It's such a ridiculous, like when you hear certain things, it's like, it's just like,
that same program would be so beneficial for vets getting out, right? Like you can do a testosterone check for these guys. That would be massive too.
That's what I'm saying. So the big thing that I've learned, and I'm actually gonna work with a company called Core Medical Group, and they do it.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, dude, I'm actually gonna link up with the owner here in the next couple of days. Great guy. They're doing amazing stuff. Well, they're doing amazing stuff in general, but they're doing some specific stuff for veterans. It's really cool. But the one thing that's so interesting that the military needs to be doing a better job. And again, if the military does a better job of this, that will tie into what the VA can do. And that is, it's just like with TBI. It's like the VA is like, hey, you have TBI. And I'm like, oh, really? Why? And they're like, well, because in your records you got blown up and blah, blah, blah. And I go, you don't know I have TBI. They're like, what do you mean? And they go, in order to have TBI, I have to have a baseline.
Yeah.
And you never gave me a baseline.
So there's no test before.
So you don't know if I have TBI or not. And they're like, well, are you trying to reduce your rating?
You're like, no, but
no,
still.
I'm just saying you guys need to test for a baseline, because without a baseline, you don't know what is a deviation from that baseline. And hormones are obviously the same way. Like, there should be a level of what is your baseline hormones when you come in, 100%. And then, track them through, and again, do I think that this should happen for pack clerks?
No,
probably not.
But it should definitely to work for the tier 1 operators.
Well, I think or
even infantry guys.
I think all combat arms. That's my
agree.
my 2 cents.
But I'd have to start there so you can at least work a smaller group and start getting.
No. I think I mean, look, I know, being where I was, I know how many things started there and then
always do.
And then it's like and then filtered down.
20 years later, the Marine Corps.
God, dude, I don't know if you know, but I was in Fallujah in 04 with.
Oh, were you really with the Marines?
Corps,
yeah.
That was,
what are you guys carrying?
I mean, there was, man, I got some crazy stories from that time. Like, I mean, it was just wild, man.
Well, let's fast forward then. So where you were at, you got out of that, you went to Afghanistan the first deployment.
Yeah.
And then you rotate home.
Yeah. So the short, I can explain this because it's kind of interesting. So I was in Afghanistan as a sniper, as I said, doing missions out of the outstation, and I got to do a mission with the place that I would eventually go to. Mm-hmm. And I did that mission. And I'm like, yep, okay.
With those guys?
Yeah, because they didn't have a sniper team. So they basically took us. And after that, I was like, all right, I want to go do that.
Yep.
And then I got back, I put in a packet and took it. It was a process. But I eventually got the chance and I made it. And then I went and, a year, whatever, training later. And then, actually, my first deployment to Iraq was Fallujah.
Really? In 04?
Yeah.
Oh, hot spot. With the Marine Corps, huh? Or at the time with the Marine Corps?
Yeah, we were...
It was their AO.
Attached and not attached at the same time. So we got to... it was interesting. But I got to see, we were on a Marine Corps base. I think it was called TK at the time. It's right outside of Fallujah.
Awesome.
And... it was bananas, man. But the thing is, that and I've said this before on a podcast, but man, it was really hard. It was hard to watch the Marine Corps system. And you obviously,
it's clunky.
You know what I'm talking about better than me, but it was like, there's so many Marines that are just freaking hard charges and they'll do whatever you tell them, hey, dude, go fucking storm the nest. Like,
yes. Yeah. Or just crunchies, bro. It's just,
they'll do it. But the problem is
in you.
Well, but the problem that I saw is like that mentality can be abused by bad leadership.
1,000%.
And that was
it does get abused.
And it does. And I watched it. And
I don't even know if it's intentional by some of these guys too. Some of them are dumb and some of them do abuse it for sure.
Yeah, I to your point, I think it's a little bit of both.
Depending on, I guess, what rank and where.
Yeah, I mean, because I saw, like, I'll give you an example. I was in on the invasion briefing, like literally, like generals. And, and I walked out. I was so angry.
You think that's a shit plan?
It was a shit plan. I mean, it was a shit plan, and I just was like it. I get it in the sense that, like, I get it in the sense that I thought it was a shit plan, but now being older and wiser, I was like 20, I don't know, 6, 7, whatever. At the time. Or now I realize, like, it was a shit plan, but maybe it was they couldn't have done it the way that I thought would have been a good plan. It just, they couldn't do it that way because of, the capabilities at the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, but at the same time, I would argue, dude, if you're doing a briefing and you say we're going to lose guys here, no, dude. Like, I'm sorry. No, you got to redo the plan.
100%. You should mitigate for 0 casualties.
The plan should have 0 casualties.
100%.
There should
You're going to have a contingency and a tertiary, and it's going to happen.
There's going to risk. There's a risk for guys. But when you say we're going to lose guys here, we're going to lose guys here, I was like, nope, that's a bad
You're
plan.
failing the mission.
Yeah, you need to go back to the drawing board on that.
100%, especially with the other military capabilities you have. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Dude, the plan was to drop 3 JDAMs at first light.
All right.
Now, keep in mind, at this time, the freaking insurgency knew that Fallujah was going to be invaded.
Yes.
So you drop 3 JDAMs at daylight. What do you think you just told them?
Oh, dude.
We're coming in.
100%. We're clearing the way.
We're coming in, guys.
Yeah.
So it's like they announce it all, and then they sweep through the whole city in daylight. And I'm like,
yeah. Yeah.
It was just crazy.
That's how they did. That's how Fallujah ran, right? I mean, that was the whole thing.
That's pretty, I mean, it didn't.
House to house. And
Yeah.
door to
Yeah, I
door.
mean, it was, I think, you know, they made some tweaks to it, but by and large.
What was your guys' component during that time?
So we were doing, we were really there like we were always there overall doing, which was going after top,
Yeah.
top
VIPs.
figures. Yeah. Either, I think at that time there was still a couple on the original deck of cards, thing. But also we were trying to get, the big facilitators and I don't even remember I don't think Zarqawi was a name at that. He might have been. I don't remember. But, we were just going after. We were developing intel to get, the big facilitators. That's pretty much what we did the whole time.
Gotcha.
And again, I was really lucky where I was because even at a junior level, I was lucky that I daily got read in on the whole picture.
That's because who you're with.
Yeah, exactly. But it was,
100%.
you really, and then you hit a target and then you do something there. And then later they go, hey, there, you guys got this guy is this guy and he's tied to this guy. And then, you just start, it's probably like a cop, with a board and you start understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
That's what I wished I knew.
And how it relates to the overall picture, how it relates to the war effort, how it relates to helping people, saving people. So I was very lucky in that sense. And again, talking with, Marines or even Ranger buddies that I ran into there, you just, those other units
We're not privy to that info.
Wasn't privy to that info, which again, and I understand the way the system works, obviously, but
passing down a lot of knowledge things.
yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of
not an option anyway.
Yeah, you can't have 400 people in the talk briefing. So so I get it, but it was and it goes to show you how important dissemination is, in any unit. So.
So I got privy to more information a little bit than most people because we were what's considered jump platoon. So we were VIP security for a battalion commander, battalion sergeant major. And so anybody that came in our AO would get to work with those VIPs, considering like Senator McCain was running for presidential election. He came into our combat zone. And so like I'm
Where
19. I was in Haditha.
Oh, Haditha.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just North Al-Anbar.
Yeah.
And then we went all the way down through when we did a couple of missions. We'd go down to like the green zone and take somebody like a Navy chief or a corpsman or something.
There was, dude, Iraq was so crazy because there was a Marine base I went to. I put a gun in my head. I couldn't remember the name of it, but it was like out of a movie, dude.
Really? In what aspect?
Dude, it was like, I don't even remember where it was. Well, let me rephrase that. It was like probably southwest of Baghdad.
Okay.
Because we were driving, we were going all over the place.
Yeah, you're all over.
Yeah, we operated literally all over Iraq.
Yeah.
So like I was doing missions in Mosul, as Fallujah, Ramadi, Baghdad, you name it. But at this time, I don't remember what we were doing, but we were driving around and I think it was in between Fallujah and Baghdad. And dude, it was this Marine base that was in the middle of fucking nowhere. When I say the middle of nowhere, I don't mean like the middle of nowhere. I mean Iraq, middle of nowhere.
No, it's nothing there for people that don't know.
Nothing.
Like you're on the moon.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and I remember just coming into this base, and it was like
It's just HESCO. That's all there is,
dude. It was like a HESCO castle.
It's all it is, a HESCO castle.
And then we
Everything's
come in
plywood.
There. I don't remember why we were there, but I remember going in there, and it was just the most ramshackle, thrown up Marine logistics base, right? And I just remember dudes on the, with 50 cals and Mark 19s on the, up on the towers and everything. And I just remember being like, dude, this feels out of a Vietnam movie.
Yeah.
Where it's some
straight
thing in the middle of Nam. And it's just this base that's got fuel and you know what I mean? Like, and it was just crazy. We were only there for
and burn shitters, man. That's all
it
you
was
got.
just like, it was just crazy. We were there for like, I don't know, like 2 hours. And then it was just like,
God, it sucked to live here.
it was such a weird, it's just, you don't think of how much logistics, that you support that you need. And then you realize, dude, you got to have gas stations all over the place. I mean, dude, tanks burn a lot of fuel,
Crazy,
a lot of diesel. Yeah.
Crazy.
I got to go through Baghdad on a Abrams.
That's cool.
Dude, that was fun.
That's cool.
Dude.
We did a couple ops when they were in the convoy and stuff. And I was just like, that's cool. There's machines, man. They're crazy.
Oh yeah. We got to do a mission out of I think we did a couple of them out of a Bradley too.
Oh, that's sick. That's Army stuff.
Yeah, except for you're in a Bradley on a street and it's like,
your teeth are shattered out of your face.
You're like, I want to puke. Yeah, but it was still pretty cool, because I was Bradleys. I was thinking of 80s, videos of people running out of Bradleys.
Loved all
dude,
that.
A Bradley will wreck shit.
They will.
If there's anything,
crazy.
dude, if there's anything that people have learned in Ukraine, it's that Bradleys are bad motherfuckers.
They are. They got toes on the side.
Dude, two toes, a freaking 25 millimeter freaking cannon. I mean, that thing wrecks shit. Have you seen the one where the Ukrainian Bradley just goes head up with this Russian tank?
No.
Dude, I don't think it was intentional. But they end up just coming straight at each other. And he's just like,
because that chain gun's going to keep running.
Oh, dude.
Compared to loading a freaking like 155 or something.
Yeah. Oh, the chain gun keeps hitting, and I think it's got depleted uranium.
Oh, it goes straight through that thing.
Yeah, it was jacking it up. Yeah, and then it eventually shot it up, and I think it ran into a tree.
Jeez.
That's what happened. The Bradley hit its view. Its digital viewport or whatever, so it didn't know where it was driving, and it ran into a tree. It's just some wild videos of the Ukraine,
crazy,
dude.
Man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you talk much about the transition from Ranger Battalion and over to the next unit?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about anything. I mean, for me, man, it was. Well, first of all, let me tell you, I'll go back a little bit and say, when I first got to Ranger Battalion, I'm like, all right, dude, I'm gonna. Want to be on the line, I want to be a door kicker,
Hell yeah.
quote unquote. Yeah, dude, my first job was a freaking assistant machine gunner.
An A gunner?
Like the worst job ever,
right?
You
just carry a shitload of ammo and an extra barrel.
a barrel, a tripod, T&E, and freaking 1,000 rounds of 7.62, which weighs 77
and you're just going to carry this carbine at the same time. Yeah.
Not at that time, bro.
Oh, no way.
At that time,
what are you carrying?
M9. I had an M9.
That's all?
I had an M9 and a primary tripod. Like, you want to talk, bro? You want to talk about feeling like a loser, right? Everyone's got like guns. I don't even have an M4, dude. I got a pistol. I have this picture of me on like one of my first training rotations as a private, and like it's like I swear to God, you're not joking. I'm literally.
That's all I can think of is I'm you.
I was like, because everyone else is like looking cool.
Hell
I'm like.
Charlie's Angel.
I was like, what else am I going to do, right? Yeah. And so so then I was like, and then I went to Ranger School, got my tab, and then I came back and I'm like, oh, I'll finally be a gunner.
Sick.
My whole squad was tabbed, which does not happen.
Oh, wow.
And I was a tabbed assistant gunner, which is like insult to injury. It's like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So I was like, dude, I'm out of this. So then I went and became a sniper. And I loved that job. I loved it. I loved it because, in my opinion, it's unmasterable. At that time, now in Ranger Battalion, recon and snipers are separate. At that time, they were the same. So as snipers, you had to do the recon mission. You had to learn cameras. You had to learn radios. Cool. You had to learn call for fire. You had to learn, freaking ECAS. You had to learn the field skills, stalking, hide sights, and then shooting is a whole nother, calling wind and range estimation and everything. So it was really impossible to master the job. And I love that because
that always get better. Absolutely.
Yeah. You could always get better. There was always something to get better at. So I really liked it. But I had never been like a door kicker. So for me, when I went to, the next unit, it was awesome. Finally, after 4.5 whatever years that I was doing, like a door kicking CQB job.
So that was a big transition, just the change of combat role.
Yeah. And again, I really like both equally. I wouldn't say one for me, everyone's different, but for me, they're both equal.
Quite a bit different.
They're very different
orientation, right?
Well, what's interesting, it's just like I say this about Hollywood, you're going to be a better actor if you understand directing. You're going to be a better director if you understand acting. And it's the same way when you're talking about, sniping or assaulting. you're a better sniper if you understand the dynamics of assaulting, because you better understand how to support the assault team. You know the information they want to know, the information they need to know. Then conversely, if you're on the other side, you know how to allow them. If you were a sniper and now you're an assaulter, you know how to put yourself in positions to allow them to better support you.
That makes sense.
Rather than, I'll block their field of fire on this movement, or, example. So I think it's important to a degree to know both. And I think, at the end of the day, the whole game of combat is wherever your position is on the board, the more you know about the different positions, the more you know about how the board works. Yeah. Exactly. So for me, it was great to do that job and be on target. And I loved it. It's funny because I'm glad that I got hurt and medically retired, because I now realize that I don't think I would have stopped.
No, I believe that.
Yeah, I don't think I would have stopped. And what I also have learned now is it'll never be enough. Do I feel like I did enough? No. But even if I was there for 20 years, I'm pretty confident I would still feel the same.
I believe that.
Because it's never enough. And again, that goes back to...
It's addictive, man.
It is addictive. It's addictive. It's adrenaline addiction, or what I call chaos addiction, which is what my book's about. And that all ties fundamentally down to self-worth. If you feel that there's a hole inside you that needs to be filled, and you're searching for external things to fill it, nothing is going to fill it. You're going to search for things, and you're going to think they're filling it, but they're not. And until you realize that the hole can only be filled by yourself, it doesn't matter what you attempt to fill it with, whether it's fame, money.
Exactly.
It's an endless hole until you realize that the hole is filled easily by yourself.
Right. And then once you can get to that point, which is probably the hardest part, is then you can have clarity on what it is that you actually want to do and how you execute it.
Well, it's like I tell people with, I was that guy that, when I was younger, I focused so much on getting money, and it failed. And the reason it failed is because the money was never it was never what I wanted. What I wanted was some sort of tangible external value that I could point to and go, see, I have worth because I have this, but did I want to do the things that I was doing, intrinsically? No. And that's why they never worked.
That makes
because
sense.
they were always for the wrong reasons,
That's super important right there.
It's so critical, it's like, and now it's like I realize at this point, it's like, dude, take something you love doing that you know well, which, by the way, there is no reason whatsoever in today's world that you can't monetize
anything, right?
You can monetize collecting coffee cups. I guarantee somebody loves collecting coffee cups, and you can monetize it. The first YouTube, the first coffee cup collector podcast.
It's true.
There's everything now because you're taking, what used to be small demographics that couldn't connect can now be connected.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
And so it's a very different time, now than it used to be.
Yeah. How much different was Ranger Battalion versus the unit?
Night and day. Yeah, it really is. There's no...
Scale-wise, right? I mean, you're just talking so many different... A lot less people, but at the same time...
I'll say it this way. When I was... Again, I'm a movie fanatic, right? So it's like, when I was in the military, my whole time, I was like, man, nothing is movie cool. Like, I've never seen anything that's like movie cool. When I got there, I'm like,
this is it.
This is movie cool. You're doing stuff.
The operations or what you have are all the above,
dude,
man.
even training. There was like training stuff I'd be doing. I'm like, this is movie cool,
Yeah.
So it was definitely I was definitely, I mean, look, there's still things, that if you were king for a day, you'd change. I mean, that's never going to change. But by and large, man, I was pretty happy with it. Was what I had hoped for. Yeah, it was what I had hoped for.
And you're playing the A leagues. I mean, you're playing with the guys that are top tier of their class of the team.
Yeah, and that's good and bad. You know what I mean by that?
Ego wise.
Well, yeah, ego wise, because you're. It's just like I joke about, the prom king from, Tulsa, Oklahoma. He goes to LA to be an actor, and he goes to an audition, and there's 20 dudes there that are all better looking and better talented actors, and he's like, oh shit, maybe I should have been the big fish in the small pond rather than the small fish in the big pond. And there's definitely some of that there. I mean, there was guys where I was just like, dude, like I can never. There's no amount of practice or training that I could ever do that would make me close to be able to do this, that, or the other. I mean, there were people that were just either genetic specimens, like physically, like you watch them do an oar course and you're like, that's fucking, the person's a cyborg, right? Yeah, you're just like, what are they? I mean, there's like this obstacle, I won't get into detail, but there's this obstacle that you like crawl over, and there's this dude that, I don't even know how he did it, but he was the only one that could do it, and he could run over it.
Holy cow.
He's the only person. And people were like, people heard of him, and they're like, no one can run over that.
Yeah.
Like, he ran over it, I mean, the odds of getting hurt are so, theoretically, like it's a timing thing with jumping, and it's like, theoretically you do it, but you make one mistake and you're hurt, and he just was like, so you look at that, you go, dude, I'm not at that level. And then same thing, shooting, whatever skill it was. And there's people that are just really smart. And so there's the only negative thing I'll say is, you had to freaking work hard every day just to try and keep up.
Oh, I believe that.
Which is good, but it definitely was a level of stress sometimes where you just felt, that you couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that definitely happened. But
I remember when I was in Iraq in 2007, and we did an operation with Task Force 16. And so I think it's an ODA team from what I understand. And essentially, I just remember being like 19 and like, this is sick. These guys are going to drop in with their own terps. They're going to drop in with their own dogs and detainee. I'm like, that's sick. So they did. We made them our now 3-star general, but he was my battalion commander. And he's kind of the control of all of it. And he was like, they're going to get in our convoy, which they were super stoked about, doing their badass shit. And they come with a Marine line company, essentially. And I just remember in the back of the truck, because I was in one of the back of the 710s that they loaded up on to go inside the city. And I remember like, what do I call you? Like, what do I address you? Like rank. I'm just 19-year-old Marine, grunt. And he's like, call me Mike. And I was like, oh, that's sick, dude.
That's so cool.
That's so cool. Like,
You've got a first name. Wow.
I know, and now they got all the stuff on their forearms and everything going on. And I just remember being like, how long would it take me when I get out of the Marine Corps to like, just to get, if I did re-enlist and like lat move to the Army and to get out? He's like, oh dude, probably like 5 to 7 years, it took him 7 years to get to where he was. Just through training schools and stuff like that. Well, I mean, obviously you can rotate out and go through school, but it depends on how long it takes.
Especially with the 18 series. I mean, 18 Delta is like, I don't know, 2.5 years of school. It's a long.
That's just base school, right? Like we're that's specialty school.
I think that's everything. I mean, you got the Q course, you got SOCM, I think it's about 2.5 years. I didn't do it. I could be wrong, but it's a long pipeline, really. I was actually going to, at one time, this is 2000, I was in Jordan, and I got convinced by this PJ to go PJ National Guard. Now, again, I would have failed because I can't swim, but he convinced me to try. And I was like, oh, dude, I'm going to do it. But it was, dude, the PJ pipeline's pretty sick. Not only that, but they were doing this National Guard. The PJ National Guard was like amazing. They could jump on deployments if they wanted. If they didn't want, they didn't.
Super chill.
Oh, it's Air Force. What do you want?
I almost re-enlisted in TAC P unit, and then I was gonna transcend up to try to work that, and that was right when I met my wife, and she's like, I didn't marry you to be in the military. And I'm like, all right, I won't re-enlist, but this is literally like when I got out, probably like 23.
It's crazy too, because the other one was, but he was like, dude, go join the PJ National Guard out of Alaska.
Yeah.
Was amazing because they were doing live rescues. I mean, it's Alaska.
Oh, true.
So I was like, oh shit, this is pre-September 11th. So I was really interested in that. But like I said, I don't see how I would have passed the water portion.
Yeah.
Maybe if I trained up for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe I could have scammed my way through it. But
so at 04, you're in Iraq. And Fallujah, and then in 05,
yeah.
Is that an 04, 05 deployment, or is that
no? It was a
deployment?
different, it was a different deployment. Okay. And then that was just that was we were 05 is when it really started
getting worse.
Yeah, I mean it was every target was a good target.
Yeah,
for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
and we just started multiple dudes on pretty much every one.
Wow.
And yeah, that one, it's a long story how it happened, but it was just, it was one of those situations where a bunch of things that didn't normally happen the way they happened a different way.
Yeah.
And it just led to, a catastrophic injury for myself. But again, looking back now, I'm pretty confident that, I think it probably saved my life to a degree.
What happened? You want to walk through it?
Yeah. So I was in, so we were, at this time, we were going after V-bed makers because they were
all over the
it was really extreme at that time.
Yeah.
And so we were just, again, kind of going back to what I said earlier, going after the makers,
yeah.
The suicide guys who gives a shit.
The
facilitators that had the vehicles and the bombs, and those were the real, those were the ones really making it happen. The people blowing themselves up were a dime.
HME guys, all that.
Yeah. So we had been doing that, and also going after Zarqawi, which was the insurgent mastermind, for lack of a better term. I mean, the insurgency never recovered after he was killed. Anyways, and this was actually a Zarqawi target now I think about it, but we were, the way we were searching, we had a person doing our searching, and that person we had been working with for a while, and he was really good. And then that night, it was cold. It was in winter, and that night he was sick, and so we got a new guy. And that was probably major, factor number one.
Yeah.
And this guy just wasn't as experienced, and so we get to Solder City, which is a really rough.
Solder City is rough.
It was a really rough neighborhood. I mean, it was like we did an offset infill, so we're walking near the target, and he just was like, "This is it. This is the house." And we're like, "Cool." So we hit it. I don't think we. Maybe we did. I don't remember. I don't think we explosively breached. Oh, we could have. And I remember being in the house. And, after a while, you just develop a sixth sense of like,
so weird.
Yeah, or conversely, it's like I always say, if you go in and the freaking kids are yelling and the wife is yelling at you, it's probably the wrong house. When you go in and the kids and the wife don't say a fucking word,
you're at the right house.
You're at the right house. And people are like, wait, that doesn't make sense. It does make sense. They don't say anything because they know why you're there.
Yes.
If they're yelling and screaming, it's because they don't know why you're there.
Why are you here?
They're pissed off, just like I would be. If you come into my house with the SWAT team, I'm going to be pretty fucking pissed off, understandably. If you come in and I know I'm selling drugs and you come in, I'm going to be like,
yeah.
You got me.
Straight up.
So I go in there, the wife and kids are going bananas, and I'm like, oh, there's just something off about this. Then I remember very specifically, I was in a room with, I think it was 2 kids. It was definitely a woman, a man. I believe it was 2 kids. And I was like giving them like suckers. I carry stuff in my pocket, pencils and suckers and candy. And again, just based on my interaction with the kids, again, if they're guilty or not guilty, the kids aren't guilty. But
you can tell that they know what's parents. What's going on.
Exactly. If the kids hate you, it's because the parents hate you,
Absolutely.
and the kids are acting like the parents. If the kids are neutral with you or cool with you, it's because the parents are, and so these kids were just kind of interacting with me, and I was just kind of like, and I was guarding them, and I was just like, yeah, I don't, this doesn't feel right. We were there for probably, 20 minutes, quite a long time. And next thing I know, they called, hey, outside, come outside. So I went outside, and we started with that guy again, and he's like, I don't think it's, I think we're off. Well, he didn't say that, but basically,
you guys figured it out.
We figured it out, yeah. And next thing I know, we were with we had a SEAL team, a Dev Group team attached to us, and they started going. I don't remember if they told us to go. I don't remember, but basically we started looking at this other house. That it would be the equivalent of where we hit this house, and the house is like, next door, but if next door was over there.
Yeah.
Like if that house was in the backyard. Yeah. In Solder City, And so we were moving, and so that team moved around started to move around to the front of the house, and then all of a sudden it just freaking went off.
That's the right house.
Yeah, they just started shooting, hundreds of rounds, just, and then immediately, I want to say two, I don't remember, but either two.
So they hit the SEAL team?
Yeah. I think two people got shot right off the bat, maybe three. I don't remember.
Sure.
And but I just remember hearing, I'm hit or I'm shot or whatever. I knew several people were down, and so I ran into the back, it was the back. They went around the front. I ran in the back, and just got inside the house. Started clearing. They were still shooting from inside the house, outside the house. There was some other people inside the other rooms, and then eventually got to the hallway to go to that room, the front side of the room. I don't know, maybe it's the living room, and just got lit up in the hallway. You did? Oh yeah, pretty. The guy.
You're solo right now, running around the back?
No, this was. I definitely had in the hallway. I had another guy with me. I think I might have cleared one room by myself accidentally. I was just giving a class the other day about CQB, and they're like, "You don't ever clear a room by yourself." I'm like, "Sure you don't." Like, dude, it happens. Like, come on, it happens.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen when you're flowing through.
It's not the standard operating procedure.
I was, it's
you're
not
hard. Like
it's not the intended method, but it's gonna happen. And everyone's spreading out, and it's chaos. And so, anyways, no, in the hallway was me and this other guy. And we were going down. And then he got shot. Well, he was literally right next to me, just the angle of the room. Well, but I mean, I've never felt gunfire like that hallway. I mean, it was coming through the walls. Oh, yeah. Dude, it was.
They're laying it down.
It was. No, I think it was probably. My guess is that was probably one or two AKs through the wall. Yeah, because it was just, but the compression of it, I just remember being like, oh shit, and then we were both like, nope. Well, he got hit. I was like, yeah, I'm not continuing down this hallway. Yeah. So I went back, and then, the fight continued back and forth. And then the next thing I know, like I was, I'm pretty sure I hit the roof. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, really?
I'm not 100% sure. It's one of those things where, you remember it a certain way, and it's like, I'm pretty sure. I know that I fell down and broke my arm, and in addition to parts of the bone being blown out, the doctor told me that somehow I came down on my arm and actually broke it.
Made it worse, yeah.
It made it worse than the parts that were blasted out. But I feel like I hit either the wall or the ceiling. I have no idea.
What was the explosion? Did they just set the house off, or the HME went off?
It was, so I had no idea. I was literally, I was.
Boom, it's done.
Yeah, I was there, and the next
you're in a gunfight, next thing you know, you're blown
up. Next thing you know, I was blown up. And it literally was, to your point, right after it happened, a second after it happened, I was just so confused.
I bet.
I remember I took quite a bit of fragmentation in my helmet, and I just remember being like, what the fuck just happened, I remember being on the ground very clearly. There's certain things that like are a little hazy, and then there's other stuff that's very clear.
Yeah.
And what's very clear was me being on my stomach, looking down this hallway, and just seeing this weird, dust, everything in Iraq.
Yeah,
So dust,
everything.
And it was just this. It was dusty. It was like for lack of a better term, it looked like a vortex to another dimension.
That's wild.
The best way I can describe
I can
it.
totally see
And
what you're saying.
and the reason was
Because of the
it
dust.
was swirling dust, but then also bits of it were on fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like because there was stuff.
Yeah,
There was probably. I assume probably there was like bits of. And again, I don't know this, but I'm assuming there was bits of material that was like they always hang stuff.
Stuff's all over the houses.
Exactly,
100%.
burlap, whatever. So it was like this swirling vortex, and then there was like these embers, for lack of a better term, and I just remember thinking, like that looks like a portal to you know what I mean. And then, like I said, I was just confused, and it was nighttime, and so I had been wearing night vision goggles, and it blew my goggles off my face, blew my nods off my face, blew my nods mount off my face, and so I went from being in night vision, seeing to suddenly being in regular vision. I didn't know where fucking my night vision goggles were.
Yeah, you know where shit is.
No. And it's funny too, man, because I hear, there's stories of guys getting hurt and, then like, oh, I'm back in the fight, like fucking they start shooting or dude, no hero here, man. It happened and like I was so out of it. I didn't feel like this sounds weird, but I didn't feel like I was there anymore.
Really?
Yeah, like the gunfight that was because thinking about it now. So let me say it differently. There was a gunfight happening. I get blown up. To me, there's no longer a gunfight happening. Although I'm telling you right now, I know there was.
It's still going on right now.
But I didn't. It just suddenly. I was just in a
what's
different.
The least important thing at this point for you? I mean, it's kind of you're trying to triage yourself here.
So what I think happened. So I had an arterial bleed.
Oh yeah,
I had a pretty severe arterial bleed. So I think because what happened was, so I got up and like I said, I assume the gunfight was still happening, but I didn't hear it. I didn't see it. I just wasn't aware of it. All I could think of was, where's my arm? Because when my arm got hit, it killed my nerve. So this is going to sound weird. This is going to sound weird, but it's how it felt. I felt like my arm wasn't there.
Yeah, that makes sense though. With the nerve
it was weird. It's like
severed.
I felt that it was gone, even though it sounds odd. So then I was like, oh, I must have lost it. So then I flashed to Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And like felt around the ground for it. Right?
Sure.
Which was stupid.
Somewhat useless.
Yes, completely
but.
useless. And then I remember getting up and I'd come in, like I said, it was like the back porch and there was like a light on the back porch. And like I said, I couldn't see anything. By that time, there was, for a couple seconds, there was that light ember thing, but it wasn't real light. So I remember I looked at my arm, I couldn't see anything. I walked out to the back porch and then there was that light and I looked at my arm and dude, my arm was like from here to here, because it blew off all of this. You can see. Yeah. So from here to here, dude, it was just hamburger meat.
Oh, really?
Oh, dude, it looked like a shark was gnawing on it.
Yeah.
And it was like all the bone was blasted out. So it was like, I can't even.
You got great mobility for what just happened, though. Now, I mean,
no.
You saved your arm.
If you look here, and here, so it was holding on. By the entire arm was holding on by just that.
And then the bones
all blasted out. So it was like this, but also like this. So if I had this piece and then I rotated it out, dude, it literally looked like like somebody put a sock, cut up the sock, and then put some, big, femur bones from a cow in or something.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I just looked at it and I'm like, oh, that's gone.
Yeah.
That thing's getting cut off.
Sure.
And then I didn't look at it again. That was the one time I looked at it in the light. I'm like, well, that's fucked.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm not going to look at it again. And then, as I said, I knew I had a arterial bleed. I was like, well, that's not good. And then I remember very, very clearly having the thought, all right, your arm's going to get cut off, but you better fix the bleed or you're going to die. And if you die, that would be stupid.
Yeah.
Which is such a weird thing to say, but I remember thinking, God, if you die, that'd just be stupid. So I also somehow, and I have no idea how I did this, but I hopped all the houses, as you know, in Iraq have that little wall.
Thing,
yeah. So somehow I easily hopped the wall on the way in. And then on the way out, I see the light, look at my arm, and then I look at the wall. I'm like, well, that ain't happening.
Shit.
So I put my back against the wall and just sat down and tried to get a tourniquet, which, how were you trained to put on a tourniquet?
I was trained to put it on the sleeve like that, right? It's so hard. I mean, even when you're putting it on in training,
you can't do it like this.
No.
My arm was like this.
Your arm, you can't move your arm, so you're chasing it. I bet.
Exactly.
I didn't think about that.
I didn't either. I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, my training is bullshit. I would have been like this too. Yeah. I was like, what do I do, right? So I was sitting there,
looped and ready to roll. Yeah.
I was like, dude, this isn't what I was trained to do. I can't do. And luckily, this guy, Brad, got to me and put the tourniquet on my arm.
Yeah.
I
just zipped you up. And was there a guy left that was with you in that room too?
So what's funny is when I got blown up, there was a guy to my right side, and not the guy that got shot. That guy left.
Somebody else
went out to get taken care of. Somebody
Yeah.
else got up, and then him and I were next to each other, and he apparently took all his frag in his helmet, and he was unconscious. But like when I have no idea where he was. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah,
so it's like, but honestly, again, he was there, but then after I got hurt, it's not like I even had the brain capacity. I didn't even, in my mind, he no longer existed.
Yeah, you were just there.
I didn't,
crazy.
it's just, he was there, and then I got blown up, and then he wasn't there.
You're like, okay.
And it's like, I didn't even think, oh, maybe he needs help. It never even occurred to me.
That's wild.
And again, I think, your brain goes into, hey, dude,
self-preservation.
Yeah, you got to take care of yourself.
Would you guys get hit by a grenade? Or was it an RPG? What was it?
That's a long story. The CSI of
the backside of this?
Yeah, the CSI. I
maybe no definitive answer.
There's several theories, so let's put it that way. But at the end of the day, whether it was whatever, I was for a month. For a month, I had no idea. Like I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about what happened. I got evac'd. I got sent back within. I went straight into surgery to Baghdad. Then I went to. I got out of surgery. That same day, right out of surgery, I got flown to Balad on a helo. Yeah. And then I got flown from Balad that same day to Germany. They wanted me to get to Germany as fast as possible. I was in Germany for a week, and then I went back to the U.S. And, man, it's like, for me at this point, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There were no casualties from that specific situation other than I
got hurt the worst. That guy next to me got, like I said, he was unconscious. I'm sure he has some level of head trauma from it. The SEAL team, I think 3 guys got shot. One of them was Andy Stump.
Oh wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, Andy got shot, I believe, in both hips, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. But yeah, I think he got shot first. I'll have to ask him. Don't quote me on that, but I think he got shot first. And then another guy got shot, and then the guy got shot next to me. He was all right. Yeah, I think I was the only one.
So everybody left.
I think the only people, because Andy eventually got retired as well for those, because it really fucked up his ability to run and stuff.
I bet.
But it's, again, it was the worst thing at the time, and now I look back and go,
could have been worse.
Well, I think it was the best thing, because I wasn't very, I took way too much risk, in my opinion. Maybe I would have, slowed down as I got a little bit older, but but I just think that I just really didn't value myself,
I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think ultimately or not ultimately. I mean, like I said, did I feel like I did enough while I was in? No. I'd still feel that way if I did another 5, another 10, another 15 years. My buddy's been in for 27 years.
Endless shit.
And there's still stuff he's been there for 22.
Wow.
And he's like, oh man, I wish I had time to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, bro, there's always going to be something else. There's always going to be another cool job experience that you hear about, another cool, ultra secret, small, tiny unit that just got stood up to do X, Y, Z. Like, that's always going to happen. And at what point do you go, you know what? I did enough. I'm enough. I'm good.
Exactly.
I'm good.
Let's fast forward. So now, how did you get into what you do now? Right out of that, so bam, boom.
Yeah. So
retired.
Well, luckily, as I said, lucky to me, I knew the next thing I wanted to do. So,
which is where a lot of guys struggle.
Yeah,
they don't know, right?
They don't. But again, as we said earlier, I think they do, but they don't. I think just go back to what you wanted to do as a kid and really think long and hard. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, exactly what you want to do as a kid. But I think we are who we are from a much earlier age than people think.
I believe that.
And, I don't have a single hobby today that didn't start when I was a kid.
I look the same way.
I don't have any, and I just everything I want to buy, everything I want to do,
still the same as a kid.
Everything is the same as a kid. If I do something now, it's like I think about it. I wanted to do as a kid, So it's like
100%.
I think that's the mold really for us, and we.
They're always flying out. It's the F-35s.
I was going to say that's an actual jet. That's not.
They're F-35s. Sometimes it's the 22s.
Yeah. I was going to say
you'll know in the 22s.
Oh yeah, much louder.
Oh, they're so loud. Dual engines.
Yeah, dude. The 47. How crazy looking is that thing?
It's crazy.
Yeah. It looks.
For those of y'all that don't know, right now we can hear some of the fighter jets that are leaving Miramar Air Base.
Yeah.
They probably won't pick it up on the mic.
Miramar, Top Gun.
That's the real Top Gun.
It's the real Top Gun.
Yeah, people don't know that. The air show is badass, dude.
Dude, when we were at, which I cannot believe they did this, but when we're in Huntington, the air show that goes through Huntington, dude, they had fighter jets ripping through the sonic boom. I was like, dude, somebody's gonna get in trouble for that. It was
they're gonna break some,
dude, you're gonna be shattering some freaking
windows.
Bentley glasses. And fucking people are gonna be pissed, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So like I said, I was lucky that I knew what I wanted to do. I don't know. I had quite a few surgeries and a lot of recovery to do when I got out. So I was probably delayed 2 to 3 years when I got out. I was 100% without a doubt clinically depressed, no doubt about it. I was, on a shitload of opiates. I was, again, I don't know this for sure, but I pretty much know it, which was, dude, my hormones were all out of whack, and I didn't know what I didn't know. So I just thought, what's wrong with me?
Yeah,
I didn't
VA
go.
just prescribes you pills.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, here, take all of these and you'll be fine. Here, take Zoloft and Seroquel. You'll be good. Yeah, Seroquel.
The ramifications of that are what you see all the time, man.
It should be illegal as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly.
Concerned. But so I basically just went out and just started, trying to meet people and get an opportunity. And it took, a lot of time and a lot of hustle. And I got, my first job, which was like, I don't even remember, for like a Discovery Channel. I honestly don't even remember what it was, but I was advising on this like show, Recreation, whatever. And, that turned into another opportunity. And it took me, I don't know, probably 3 years before I worked on my first film, like as an advisor.
Yeah.
And then after I did that one as an advisor, so I did, I think 3 months on this movie as an advisor. My friend at the time did 2 weeks as an actor.
Okay.
He made more in 2 weeks than I made in 3 months.
Holy cow.
So I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I
again.
wanna be
So
the actor.
I was like, from then on, I'm like, look, dude, I'll advise, just put me on camera as an actor, and I'll do something on camera that you'd have to hire a person for anyway.
Sure.
I'll do that, and then I'll do this extra thing, and that's how I became
That's
an
awesome.
actor. Is I just was like, put me on camera, and I'll do both.
Yeah.
I'll double dip, and so I did that for I don't know another 3-4 years. Movies are very sporadic. It's like Suicide Squad would be an example. I forget what I was doing at the time, but I get a call. Hey, can you go to, Toronto for 6 months and 3 days? That's how it comes.
Really?
Yeah. That's just how it comes up. And then, so I was like, yeah. So I had to move quite a bit of things around. But at the time, I knew that's
the opportunity knocking on the door.
This is opportunity knocking, and dude, if you say no, they ain't calling again.
No. What did you do with Suicide Squad?
So I was one of the advisors under the lead advisor named Kevin. He was a SEAL.
Yeah.
And then I was on, played one of the SEALs in the movie. But that was awesome.
That's cool.
That was 6 months in Toronto, and dude, it was. I remember, at one point we were filming on top of this roof, and dude, the scale. They had an entire 47 fuselage. The entire fuselage of a 47 on a crane.
Oh my God.
So there's this huge crane, and it's got the fuselage of a 47 on it.
Yeah.
And I remember it swinging around. I don't know if you saw the movie. It's when Joker shoots at us with a minigun.
Yeah.
And then, you're just on this building, and then the next thing you know, in the back of a CH-47 fuselage, there's Jared Leto as Joker in a tuxedo shooting at you with a minigun.
That's pretty cool, man.
It's one of those things
That's
where you're
cool.
just like, that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And I remember taking cover, and I just remember thinking, this is bananas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally
this
different
is
what I
so
did
wild.
before.
Yeah, this is so wild, And I love it. I love storytelling, and the reason I love storytelling specifically with what I do is because, again, if you, as I say to people all the time, oh, you're Hollywood. Why are you working in Hollywood? I'll tell you why I'm working in Hollywood. Because they're going to make these movies whether we're a part of them or not.
True.
They're gonna be made.
Yep.
And if they're gonna be made, then someone may as well sign up to help steer them to be made and portray us in the right way. Because if you don't, they're gonna portray us in the wrong way.
Correct.
So I feel like it's my job to try and steer the the portrayal of military and veteran characters to I'm not saying good, but I'm saying more authentic.
Authentic.
Yeah, I don't care if you portray us good or
a
bad.
good guy,
because,
right? Yeah, 'cause we're all people.
Because both are true. Both are true.
Agreed.
As long as we try and tell it as authentically as possible, then that's I think doing the community justice.
Awesome. What's in the future?
In the future,
I know you have a book that's dropping right now, right? You want to plug the book?
Thanks for mentioning it.
Of
Yeah,
course.
I almost forgot about it. Yeah, so I wrote a book, which took quite a long time, but I wrote a book that's coming out July 15th called Forged in Chaos, which is really about, it's really about, for lack of, it's my story, and then it's what I think, everyone talks about PTSD. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. I think what most veterans are actually suffering for is a lack of self-worth that's rooted in childhood trauma.
I 1,000%
rather than just PTSD.
Absolutely, because if you look, we know the guys, right, that struggled before.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's like everyone's like, oh, he's got PTSD.
I'm like, no.
I'm like, bro, I knew that guy when we were in before he went to combat, and he was fucked up before we deployed.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes.
So,
Look at how he grew up, or the things, or something that happened, child molestation or something.
Exactly.
People have so much they bring with them, and then they're
combat's a magnifier.
100%.
Make no mistake about it. The military's a magnifier.
The military is.
It's a magnifier, but it's not the cause. It's a magnification of, but it's not generally the cause.
I totally agree.
It's a magnification of the symptoms. It's not the symptoms, nor is it the disease.
I totally agree.
And so that's kind of what the book's about. I also wrote a movie that we'll see where I wrote it and I sold it to.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can't say more about it, but
right.
I'm pretty excited about it.
It's going to fruition.
See. So I'll go a little bit further on that. At this point in my career, I've worked on a lot of people's projects, and I feel that it's time to tell my own stories and work on my own stuff and really, be the, make the creative decisions I want to make rather than helping other people make their own, and which is nothing wrong with that. I'm at the point where I want to tell my own stories. So that's what I'm doing.
So you're going to start, is that the producing role? I'm unfamiliar with
it'll be writing, directing, producing.
Awesome.
Yes, creating my own stories. And the, again, I just want to, if you start with a project that, it's like I say with advising, I can only advise on what's already been created. To get something truly fundamentally authentic, you need to create it yourself. Because I can only steer the authenticity.
That makes sense.
It's already been written, and then I come in and go, oh, hey, let's make this more. But it's like, if I create it from zero, then I can really insert the authenticity into.
You just have more control, right?
It's more control. Yeah. At the end of the day, it comes down to more control. And it's like, I would argue any and everyone in Hollywood, any artist, let me just say that, any artist, if you say, what do you want, if they're no longer starving artists, because they're going to say money. But after that, it's like you want creative control or some, more creative control. It's always a collaborative process, but I just want to be more intrinsic in the storytelling and from the creation rather than coming in after the fact, which is what I've done mostly in my career.
I love that.
And then other than that, I feel like I'm forgetting something. And then I've got my podcast with AJ.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
Which is Two Fake Seals, which has been.
You guys just started that, right?
Yeah. I think we just I think today dropped episode 3 or 4, something like that. So it's
check that podcast out.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we should have you on. It'd
I'd
be
love
great,
to be on. Yeah, you're
great.
Definitely.
AJ's a maniac. He's freaking.
I love that.
He's been around, but yeah, man, we're just having fun with it, and again, it's kind of like we're just trying to. I feel like there's a fundamental lack of authenticity in kind of the world today.
Sure.
And I feel like the more that other people are inauthentic, the more everyone feels that they need to put on that mask. And it's like perpetuating this cycle, whereas the more people that just show their authentic selves, the more other people feel comfortable to show their authentic selves as well.
Yeah, that's what we really want to see anyway.
Absolutely. It's like I say all the time, I don't know how to make you happy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a for sure recipe for misery, and that is be something other than who you fundamentally are. You will be miserable, and I don't care what that is. And to kind of tie it all in together, I feel that as children, we were our authentic selves. The reason we knew what we wanted was because we were who we were and are.
Right.
And then life, people, society, parents get in the way, and they start steering you away from who you are and who you were into what they think or want you to be. And the gap between those
That's
two
where misery is found.
Is misery.
100%. I totally agree, man. Well, where can people find you?
Find me on Instagram, Tyler A. Gray.
Okay.
And
in the podcast, right?
Mainly that.
Yeah,
then Two Fake Seals podcast.
Is it on YouTube as well?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. But if you go to Instagram, I have a link, thing like that. But
well, Tyler, I'm glad you came out, man.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It was an amazing conversation, and I look forward to continuing the friendship as always with these things. So
yeah, thanks, man.
I appreciate it.
Great, thanks for having me.